Dear students, in this module we will cover population policy and research. Specifically, this module provides information about the role of research in population policy and the kind of research one can think of in case of population policies. This module takes advantage of the recommendations from the two important and path breaking population conferences held at 1974, the Bucharest conference, and in 1994 ICPD conference held at Cairo. As we discussed in some of the other modules, two important population conferences happened of the three population conferences organized by the United Nations. The Bucharest conference in 1974, followed by Mexico conference in 1994 and International Conference on Population and Development at Cairo in 1994. The World Population Plan of Action was an important outcome of these conferences, and this plan of action provides recommendations on various aspects related to population, and research was one of the important areas of action indicated by these plan of actions. Let us now understand the role of research in population policy and the kind of research that needs to be carried out in reference to population policy and the kind of issues that need to be covered in research related to population and population policies. Let us start with the 1974 Bucharest conference and its recommendations specifically pertaining to research. The conference happened many decades before, but a closer look at the recommendations indicate that these recommendations are valid even in the current days. The 1974 Bucharest conference outcome, the World Population Action Plan, talks about data collection and analysis. It emphasizes the role of data collection and analysis in the field of population and with specific reference to population policies and programs. The plan document encourages the countries to establish a continuing capability for taking household level sample surveys. This is an important area. The sample surveys carried out as household level provide us information about the needs of the people, expectations of the people, and the attitudes, behaviors and knowledge of the people with regard to various aspects related to population. And these surveys provide information that is required for policy making and program designing. In line with the recommendation was to establish a long term plan for regular collection of statistics on various demographic and interrelated socio-economic variables. Specifically, the data should be made available on improvements in levels of living, well-being, level of education of individuals and other factors that are closely linked to the population related problems. It also says that establishing or improving the vital registration systems as a long term objective and enacting laws relevant to ensure improvement of vital registration system. The plan document also mentions that unless improvement of vital registration happens, alternative methods should be used to get up to date information regarding the vital events. Sample surveys could be one of these alternate ways to have information at regular intervals on day to day vital events such as births, deaths, migration, marriage and other factors. Let us now understand about the recommendations and the policy directions furnished in the plan of action with regard to research. The plan of action gives high priority to research activities in population problems. These include unemployment, starvation and poverty. Let us talk about research. The plan of action gives very high importance to research activities on population related problems, and these include unemployment, starvation and poverty. The plan of action also talks about research activities that are important for formulation, evaluation and implementation of population policies, and these population policies have to be consistent with full respect for human rights and fundamental freedom as recognized in the international instruments of the UN. The document also says that high priority should be given to research oriented to specific problems of countries and regions, including methodological studies. And the document says that such research is best carried out in countries and regions themselves by competent persons specially acquainted with national and regional conditions prevailing. As far as the areas of research is concerned, the document says that social, cultural and economic determinants of population variables in different developmental and political scenarios, particularly at the family level and micro level, should be on the research agenda. And demographic and social processes that are taking place within family cycle through time, and particularly that are related to alternative modes of development, should also be on the research agenda. Development of effective means of improvement of health with specific reference to reduction of maternal, infant and early childhood mortality should also be on the research agenda. Other areas that need to be considered for research include study of experiences of the countries that have major programs of internal migration with a view to develop guidelines that would be helpful to policy makers of those countries and of the countries that are interested in undertaking similar programs. The document also talks about projections of demographic and related variables, including development of empirical and hypothetical models for simulating possible future trends and projections. Other areas of research mentioned in the document include formulation, implementation and evaluation of population policies. These include methods for integrating population inputs and goals in development plans and programs, means for understanding and improving motivations of people to participate in formulation and implementation of population programs, study of education and communication related aspects of population policy, analysis of population policies vis-a-vis their relationship to socio-economic development policies, laws and institutions. Possible influence of economic system on social, cultural and economic aspects of population policies, translation into action program of policies, dealing with socio-economic determinants of fertility, mortality, internal migration and distribution and international migration should also be part of the research agenda. And the document says that collection, analysis and dissemination of information concerning human rights in relation to population matters should be the focus. Preparation of studies that are designed to clarify, systematize and more effectively implement the human rights. The document says that review and analysis of national and international laws that have bearing directly and indirectly on population factors should also be taken up. Evaluation of impact or impact assessment of different methods of family planning on health conditions of the women and family members, interrelationship between family formation, nutrition and health, reproductive biology and incidence of causes of interrelationship among the impact assessment of different methods of family planning on the health conditions of women as well as family members need to be understood. Besides, interrelationships among patterns of family formation, nutrition and health, reproductive biology and incidence, causes and treatment of sterility also should be part of the agenda for research. The research should also cover methods for improving management, delivery and utilization of all social services associated with population, including family welfare and family planning. Another area to be considered for research pertains to interrelationships of population trends and conditions with socio-economic variables, particularly availability of human resources, food and natural resources, quality of environment, need for health, education, employment, welfare, housing and other social services in communities should be studied by the research that is carried out. The research should also focus on promotion of human rights, enhancement of status of women, need for social security, political stability, discrimination and political freedom. The document talks about the research institutions at national as well as regional level institutions that are dealing with population and related questions and the kind of assistance that should be provided. Special efforts should also be made to coordinate research of these institutions through exchange of their research findings and exchange of information on their planned and ongoing research projects. This is an important aspect for strengthening the institutions that are involved in research related to population and population policies and programs in particular. The document also recommended systematic and periodic evaluation of effectiveness of population policies and programs. This has to happen from time to time, so that the directions can be given to policy makers and program managers, so that course corrective measures can be taken up. The plan document also talks about establishing a unit dealing with population aspects that should be created and placed at higher level of national administrative structure with staffing of qualified persons from relevant disciplines. Having examined the kind of recommendations that emerged from the Bucharest Conference outcome, the World Population Plan of Action, which detailed out the importance of research in population and population policies and programs. Now, let us move towards the ICPD conference of 1994 and the kind of recommendations that were emerging out from the ICPD conference with specific reference to research and role of research in population, population policies and population programs. As we know, as we discussed in the other modules, the ICPD conference held at Cairo in 1994 came out with a program of action of ICPD, and this program of action had a chapter on technology, research and development, and this chapter deals with research on population policy and research and population policy. Particularly, section A of this chapter deals with basic data collection, analysis and dissemination, which are essential parts of any research, or for that matter the research specifically to be carried out relating to population and related issues, including population policies and programs. The document gives the rationale or basis for the action with reference to research. Valid, reliable, timely, culturally relevant and internationally comparable data forms the basis for policy, program development, implementation, monitoring and evaluation. So, this highlights the need for good quality data that comes out on a timely basis. We have seen marked improvements in availability of population and related development data. This was basically due to advances made during the past few decades in methodologies and technology for data collection as well as analysis. Continuing on the rationale for action on research, many gaps remain with regard to quality and coverage of baseline information. These include even vital data on births and deaths. Continuity of data sets over a time is also an important aspect. Gender and ethnicity specific information. This is needed to enhance and monitor sensitivity of development policies and programs, but still it is insufficient in many of the areas. The next point related to basis for action pertains to measurement of migration, particularly at regional and international levels, because there are serious limitations in terms of validity and adequate coverage of this information or data at various levels, be it regional level or at international level. This needs to be taken care of. In line with the principles of the population action plan that came out as an outcome of the ICPD, individuals, organizations and developing countries should have access on a no cost basis to data and findings that are coming out of research carried out in their own countries, including the studies maintained by other countries and international agencies. This is an important dimension. The data that is coming out from various research studies should be made available to individuals as well as organizations that are interested to have access to the data. So, what kind of recommendations were coming out from the ICPD conference with specific reference to research? The recommendation is that governments of all countries should be assisted as appropriate through bilateral cooperation and international organizations, so that the national capacity gets strengthened and the governments would be able to carry out sustained and comprehensive programs in terms of collection, analysis, dissemination and utilization of population and development data in a more meaningful way, in a more effective way. The next action point was about specific attention that should be given to monitoring of population trends and population projections or demographic projections should be made from time to time, and monitoring of progress towards attainment of health, education, gender, ethnic and social equality goals. Besides, service accessibility, quality of care, these were all stated in the program of action. In line with the program of action, research has to be carried out on all these aspects, so that one gets accurate information on a timely basis with high quality, which is of immense use for the policy makers and program managers. The next action point was about programs for collection, processing, analysis and timely dissemination, as well as utilization of population and related development data that should include disaggregation including gender disaggregation and coverage. Presentation should be compatible with needs of effective program implementation on population and development. The next action point was about interaction between community of data users and data providers that should be promoted, so that the data providers can respond better to the needs of the users. There will be matching between the expectations of the users and the service provided, the data provided by the data providers. And research should be designed to take into account legal and ethical standards. This is an important dimension. The legal and ethical aspects have to be taken care while designing and implementing the research, and the research should be carried out in consultation with and in partnership with or with active participation of local communities and institutions. The next point of action says that findings, the next action point says that findings should be made accessible and available to policy makers, decision makers, planners and program managers, so that they can use it at the right time. Comparability of all the research and data should be ensured. And the next action point talks about comprehensive and reliable qualitative as well as quantitative database that allows. So, the next action point talks about comprehensive and reliable qualitative as well as quantitative database that enables linkages between population, education, health, poverty, family well-being and other aspects, and providing data and information disaggregated at appropriate and desired levels would be an important area, with special attention towards assessing and measuring quality and accessibility of care through development of suitable indicators. The next action point talks about demographic, socio-economic and other relevant information networks that need to be created and strengthened at various levels. This helps in monitoring implementation of programs of action and activities on population and other related dimensions. The document also talks about action for research on reproductive health. Specifically, it encourages research on sexuality and gender roles and relationships in different cultural settings, with emphasis on abuse, discrimination, violence against women, sexual behavior and mores, male attitudes towards sexuality and procreation, etc. The document also talks about need for research on abortion, because of the issues relating to safety of abortions, so that one can address the determinants and consequences of induced abortion and its impact on fertility, reproductive and mental health. As regards research on social and economic aspects, the document encourages governments, funding agencies and research organizations to promote socio-cultural and economic research on relevant population and development policies and programs. It also talks about research on socio-cultural and economic issues relating to population and development programs and strategies, so that the program managers get guidance to reach the underserved people of the society. And the type of social and economic research to be carried out as per the document include operations research, evaluation research and other applied social science research, and these should be of participatory nature. As regards policy research, the document says that policy research at various levels should be undertaken to understand the issues related to population pressure, poverty, overconsumption patterns, destruction of ecosystem and degradation of resources. The document sets the agenda for research, and it includes development and improvement of methods with regard to sustainable food production and crop and livestock systems in all kinds of countries. And it also talks about the priority to be given to research on linkages between women's roles and status and demographic and development processes by various stakeholders. The document also talks about research on change in family structures. The document also talks about vital areas of research that include change in family structures, family well-being, interaction between women's and men's diverse roles, including their use of time, access to power, decision making and control over the resources. Besides associated norms, laws, values and beliefs, economic and demographic outcomes of gender inequality. And the document says that women should be involved at all stages of research on gender. As regards research on migration, the document says that research to improve understanding of causes and consequences of migration and mobility, whether international or internal, should be taken up on priority basis. The document also highlights the importance of quality of data from research on migration. As regard to research on mortality, the document highlights the need for efforts to understand factors underlying the differentials in mortality and morbidity, so that effective policies and programs can be planned. And the document mentions areas like causes of differentials, including gender differentials in mortality and morbidity at younger age as well as old age. In summary, the Bucharest Conference of 1974 as well as ICPD conference held at 1994 gave enough direction to the researchers about the kind of research that need to be carried out, the research agenda that should be considered, and the other aspects of research such as timeliness, quality, completeness, use of technology for data collection, analysis and dissemination. And it also talks about both the documents from Bucharest and ICPD talk about emphasis that should be given to issues like population policies, programs, migration, gender issues, mortality and morbidity, socio-economic and environmental linkages, population and development linkages. This document also mentioned about importance of making community a stakeholder in the entire process of research. The documents also talk about access to, or rather open access to data that is coming out from various research studies carried out by government, international agencies or national agencies or local institutions. The documents also talk about capacity building for local level research institutions. They also talk about involving women in research on population and gender, and they also go to the extent that female researchers should be part of any research on gender related issues. With the kind of information we have in this module, we got a fair understanding about the kind of research that would be helpful to population policy and population program designing. Though the Bucharest conference was held in 1974, ICPD conference was held in 1994, one may think about the relevance of the recommendations in the current days, but a closer look at the recommendations and the rationale that was provided in the population plan documents clearly indicates that the issues that were raised, the concerns that were raised in both the documents are still relevant, and they need to be considered in the current days as well, so that one gets benefit out of the research carried out on population, population policies and population programs. Obviously, research forms an integral part of any policy and program designing. Not only designing, the research would be helpful at various stages of policy and programs. It starts with providing inputs for designing the policies and programs. Then the research also helps in monitoring the implementation mechanism of policies and programs, and it also gives feedback from the users, from the people, from the society about the policies and programs. In a nutshell, research has to be an integral part of population policies and programs at various stages. That would help us in making the policies and programs more effective in achieving the goals that are set out by the respective governments in their population policies. Thank you so much.